Britain's news channel.
Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard.
We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think. Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often they will be difficult stories, stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in the home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good evening, I'm Rory Smith in the GB newsroom. A legal bid to challenge the decision by the Home Office to use former RAF bases to house asylum seekers has been approved by the High Court. West Lindsey District Council opposes the use of RAF Scampton in Lincolnshire. Braintree Council is challenging the use of Wethersfield Airfield in Essex. The two-day hearing began on Wednesday as the first migrants began arriving at Wethersfield. Well, former Home Secretary Priti Patel has told us here at GB News that laws cannot be disregarded.
Braintree District Council have worked incredibly hard, and all credit to them and their legal counsel for getting us to where we are with this judicial review. It's important that local people and our local councils and statutory service bodies, that their voices are heard. We have laws in place, Nationality and Borders Act, we had the new plan for immigration in place. We worked for years to get those policies in place and that legislation in place. You can't just discard it and try to supersede it with new policies.
Police say no criminal offences were committed in relation to the deaths of two people off Bournemouth Beach in May. 17-year-old Joe Abbas and 12-year-old Suna Khan died after being suspected to have been caught in a riptide next to the pier on May the 31st. A man in his 40s who was initially arrested on suspicion of manslaughter will face no further action. Former Manchester City footballer Benjamin Mendy has been found not guilty of rape and attempted rape at Chester Crown Court. The France international was accused of raping a 24-year-old woman at his house in Cheshire in October 2020. He was also charged with the attempted rape of a 29-year-old woman 2 years earlier. Mendy has always denied the charges. Almost 1,000 workers at Gatwick Airport, including baggage handlers and check-in staff, will stage 8 days of strikes later this month. Unite Union says they're because of ongoing pay disputes. Workers will walk out for 4 days. That's from Friday the 28th of July, then again from Friday the 4th of August for another 4 days. Hollywood actors have joined a strike by screenwriters for the first time in 60 years. As well as a pay rise, actors want guarantees that AI versions of their likeness won't be used to replace them without permission or without payment. Some film premieres here in the UK will go ahead, but without the stars until the dispute is resolved. And in sport, world number 1 Carlos Alcaraz will face Novak Djokovic in the Wimbledon men's singles final. Well, earlier Djokovic beat Jannik Sinner 6-3, 6-4, 7-6. It earns him a record-breaking 35th final, taking him past that of Chris Evert. TV, online, DAB+ radio and on TuneIn. This is GB News. Now though, time for headliners.
Hello and welcome to Headliners, your first look at Saturday's newspapers. I'm your host, Andrew Doyle, and tonight I'm joined by the comedic magician, Leo Kearse, and his glamorous assistant, Lewis Schaefer. I always see you as a kind of assistant. You should be wearing something more skimpy and revealing, Lewis.
Do you know something? I should be, because I've got now the looks for it at my
You have the looks, you have the figure. It's quite impressive.
Because you've lost weight, it's easier to make you levitate.
I am the U Edwards of GB News.
I don't know what that means. No, let's go with you're the Debbie McGee of GB News. That's much better. OK, we move on to the front covers of Saturday's newspapers. The Times is running with inheritance tax could be axed in Tory bid for votes. That's interesting. The Telegraph is running with schools told to aid parents of trans pupils. We're going to get to that in just one moment. The Express has exposed eco plot to paralyse capital. And Daily Mail, meltdown, very dramatic. The Guardian is running with surge in demand for UK gaming addiction clinic. And the Daily Star, blowtorch Brits. There's a 49-degree Euro heatwave, but that's not going to keep us off the beaches, apparently. And those were your front pages. And we're going to kick off the show with the front cover of Saturday's Times. Leo, you've got this one?
So inheritance tax could be scrapped in the Tory bid for votes. So with the general election coming up next year, they're offering some sweeteners, or they're looking at sweeteners to offer to people to get them to vote Tory, which is looking like a tough task at the moment.
It is, isn't it?
And it was assumed that they'd cut income tax, take 2p off income tax, which would cost, I mean, they say here it would cost about £14 billion a year, which is a funny way of looking at it, because it's not really a cost, it's money you're not stealing off people. So, I mean, it's different from...
How very libertarian of you.
It's not like anybody's taking the money from the government. It's money they're not taking from people. But the inheritance tax is a bit of a curveball. It's going to be popular in the sort of the leafy, rich, posh, traditionally conservative places. Not popular in the red wall. Only 4%, less than 4% of deaths result in inheritance tax.
Right, so this is the point here. So it mentions here in this article, it's charged at 40% for estates worth more than $325,000 with a further allowance. The upshot is that most parents can pass on $1 million to their children without any inheritance tax whatsoever. Surely that means that the inheritance tax only really affects the super rich, of which there are only a handful. Lewis?
Well, £1 million is not going to be considered super rich the way...
Is it not?
No.
Well, I don't know many people with $1 million in their bank account. I know you're an exception because you do all those Hollywood movies.
Yes, exactly. Yes, look for me in Indiana Jones. But it is something that just only affects a small number of people. But I think it's one of the most painful things, because we work very hard for our children and we want to pass something on. So even if we don't have anything to pass on, we don't want to be in the position.
Well, is it maybe like the way in which capitalism kind of really is engineered in America, is that most people think they're going to end up within the top 1%. They're going to be rich, and that's why they go along with all these various things that privilege the rich.
I'm going to be rich. But I'll tell you what they should bring in, instead of like inheritance tax for rich people, for people like me, when my dad dies, I'm going to get a bill. Why doesn't the government come in and pay like 40% of that bill?
I think that's fair. But this is an interesting one that the Tories are resorting to this kind of thing. It feels like scraping the barrel at this point. Can't they just accept they're going to lose the next election and sort of gear themselves up to come back even stronger the next time? Wouldn't that be the best tactic?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really what they're looking to do. Apparently there's by-elections on Thursdays. They've got 3 by-elections, and it's looking likely that they could lose all 3, so...
Wow. Yeah, not looking good. OK, well, we're going to go on to the front cover of Saturday's Telegraph. Lewis has got the information.
Well, this is a related story, in a way. Schools told to aid parents of trans pupils. And this is basically the same story as before, is the Tories are doing all the stuff they should have done in their day one to make people happy.
Yeah, they're publishing these guidelines to schools because there's been so much confusion. We've reported on this channel quite a lot. Various schools have different policies when it comes to what they call social transitioning. So a kid comes in and says, I want to be known by different pronouns, a different name. Do the school tell the parents? Some schools have. Some schools have kept it to themselves. No one really knows what to do. So this is actually quite a good thing, isn't it?
Yeah, they've said 3 things. They said 3 things. Is that there will be a delay. Is that the school has to delay the child from doing
so they can reflect. They call it a period of reflection.
I mean, but it doesn't say for how long that should be, whether it should be 3 months. They don't want to put it into writing. It just says, hey, slow it down.
Yeah.
The second thing is that the school should have single-sex lavatories, changing rooms, and board.
I think that's a no-brainer, to be honest.
It is, but the fact that it needs to be said tells you. And finally, is that any boy who identifies as a girl should not be able to compete in contact sports with girls.
Again, a kind of no-brainer you would have thought, but the fact that we need guidelines is quite interesting. But Leo, it's slightly different, isn't it? Because this isn't really a case of dealing with people who are suffering from gender dysphoria as it was traditionally understood.
Yeah.
We are seeing a wave across schools of children identifying not just as the opposite sex, but as non-binary as well. And it's to the numbers are so extreme, you could call it a kind of contagion, couldn't you?
Yeah, I mean, it's shot up so quickly and so rapidly that, you know, we can't say... I mean, if anything else, if any other health condition shot up, you know, people would be like, well, what on earth is causing, you know, these these tumours or these broken legs? And there'd be some cause. And with this, I mean, I think it's access to the internet, and also, in a lot of cases, I mean, they're talking about children being able to hide their transition from their parents. I think for a lot of liberal parents, they're trying to force their child into a transition.
But also, I mean, non-binary in particular is a fashion trend, and you know, we know that girls, in particular teenage girls, all the studies tell us that they are particularly susceptible to social contagion. It was the same with self-harm. For instance, it was the same thing.
Or with anorexia. All those people were doing that.
Absolutely. Okay, we're going to move on now to Saturday's Express. Leo, this is a subject close to your heart. Just Stop Oil.
Yeah, so Just Stop Oil, the eco-zealots are plotting to paralyse London next week with a series of mass protests to cripple the economic heart of Britain.
What's this, like their Tet offensive? They're just going to go full on the capital.
Yeah, and we've seen, I mean, just today I saw a video, it wasn't in this country, I think it was in Germany, but a trucker actually drove at them and pushed them along the street. And if they'd, you know, snagged on something, they would have been under his wheels. So I think, you know, somebody is going to get hurt very seriously, possibly die as a result of this.
What are they talking about doing? What sort of things are they talking about?
So they're going to do more of the, you know, roadblocks and things like that, and it's to scrap all new domestic oil and gas licensing, because the government has said we're going to license more domestic oil and gas because, you know, being dependent on Russia didn't work out. But the thing is, Just Stop Oil they're not just like some woolly, well-meaning eco-warriors. They're funded by a green energy baron, Dale Vince, who's worth over £100 million. His company makes green energy from wind and solar.
So you're saying there's a financial interest here?
So yeah, he's got an absolute interest in, like, he funds Just Stop Oil to push this agenda, and they're bringing pressure. They're like a sort of street militia bringing pressure to try and stop this new domestic oil and gas licensing. He also funds Labour, and they'll bring through policy. They'll bring through subsidies. The last Labour government paid him £36 million in subsidies. So
yeah, but Leo, you say that, but when you talk to these people, it's pretty clear that they do sincerely believe that what they are saying is true. I mean, I think these activists sincerely believe we're on the verge of apocalypse and it's up to them to save us all.
Yeah, but if you talk to jihadis, they sincerely believe in what they're doing, but they're still funded by, you know, Wahhabist funding streams from Saudi Arabia or whatever.
Leo, what do you make of this? Are they going to stick within the law? What did I call you?
You called me Leo because you still think...
I called you Leo, did I?
No, you didn't call me Leo. You just had the name Leo in your brain.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, well,
I don't think you called me Leo.
You're just panellists. You're interchangeable to me. You could be absolutely anyone. Leo, I don't care... Lewis, you see, I've done it again. I don't care about you as an individual. I care about what you bring to the show.
I'm your favourite.
Well, yes.
And Andrew is my favourite.
Do you know what? To be honest, I got your name wrong deliberately. I'm just flirting with you. Now, tell me what you think about these eco-zealots.
Well, what I think about them, you talk about the contagion of the trans movement. There's a contagion now. I think this is the end game of the world. I think what's happened is these young kids, especially, they think that there's no future for them. They think we're all going to die.
Why, though? Why do they think?
Because they've been told relentlessly. I think also because there is no future. I think we're in endgame capitalism right now. So
no, that's nonsense. Come on, people said that in the 1920s. They're probably saying it around the campfire back in the you know, caveman time.
Can we just be a bit more optimistic? I know you're all about the end of the world. You're like an Old Testament prophet. But I think we should be a bit more hopeful about the world. Things are getting better. Poverty's going down.
Yeah. And people say, oh, the environment. There's loads of environment.
I'm not
Have you been outside? There's absolutely tons of it.
No, first of all, there isn't enough. But I agree with them. I don't think it's the end of the world. I do think it's the end of the world. But I think that they definitely think it's the end of the world.
Yeah. Okay.
And if you think it's the end of the world, something must be done right now.
OK, well, we're going to move on from Lewis's internal psychological conflict, and we're going to go on to The Star. Lewis, you've got this one. They are running with a weather story, always popular.
Every summer they run with a weather story. It's, according to The Star, blowtorch Brits. It's about Brits who are going to someplace hot. It doesn't even, you know what it says? It says Euro. Basically, they're downplaying the fact that this is in Europe. And
yeah, but they're saying that British people are going to brave the sun. I mean, they're talking here about 49 degrees Celsius heat wave in Europe. I wouldn't go out in that.
I know you wouldn't, but I think the average Brit is like dying to do this. It's going to be 23 degrees in Nunhead in the hottest part of next week, which is in southeast London.
You know what? I think that's ridiculous. It's actually dangerous to go out in the sun in that. I would go out in this suit in that kind of weather just to avoid being burned.
Actually, it is not dangerous to go out in the sun.
It is.
It isn't. Just being 40, it's not. It is hot, but I think
you have to wear a hell of a lot of sunblock.
I think sunblock. You should never wear sunblock.
That is the worst advice ever.
No,
you're such a contrarian.
I'm not a contrarian.
Yeah, you are.
I've got the facts and my figures. We've been lied about sunblock. First of all, the sunblock we're putting on is omega-3. Should never put anything on your skin that you should.
Leo, I want some sanity here. You are fully aware that skin cancer is a real thing.
I think Big Nivea got to you, Andrew.
Big Nivea. Well, they did, but that's a different story.
No, it isn't.
Leo, Lewis.
Sorry.
I'm going to move on. That's it from pages.
You should never...
Shut up! Right, we're going to go to a break now, but after the break, we're going to be talking about Benjamin Mendy, useless degrees, and Emily Maitlis. See you in a minute.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, "Nana, stop arguing." I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners, the best paper preview show on TV. Not much competition, to be fair. We've got Leo Kearse tonight and Lewis Schaefer taking you through Saturday's newspapers. We're going to kick off this section with Saturday's Times, Leo. Some big news here now from the world of football.
Yes, so Benjamin Mendy, the former Manchester City defender, has been found not guilty of rape. He told, during the course of the trial, he's alleged to have told one of the women accusing him, it's fine, I've had sex with over 10,000 women. So, I mean, obviously, if you have sex with 10,000 women, you're increasing the chances that, you know, at least one of them is going to be like, well, you know, I'm going to complain about this. But he's been found not guilty. He's a free man.
You're suggesting celibacy is
like,
the more sensible approach.
Well, yeah, I mean, celibacy. I mean, like other footballers like Marcus Rashford, they channel their energy into political campaigning instead of partying with 24-year-olds.
But, Lewis, this is... I mean, it's a bit frightening, you know, that someone can have their life basically ruined, you know, on the basis of a false allegation. You know, it's really horrible.
Well, the tragedy of it is that his life has been ruined, but I guarantee you those women who've made those accusations actually believe it's real. I mean, you could sit there and say, well, they're crazy or they're wrong or they're lying.
It's an interesting point. I think this is absolutely right. People's the way they remember events, the way they perceive events, you know, completely true.
And they could actually have done this. But and this is another one of those stories that basically says that if a professional football player with millions of pounds can have his life potentially destroyed over something like this, what chance do we have?
But it's difficult, though, isn't it? Because, you know, rape is under-prosecuted, under-reported. It's very difficult to prove, which means that doubtless lots of authentic rapists and people who have committed sexual assault get away with it. So it's a difficult one, isn't it? But on the other hand, that doesn't mean that false allegations don't happen, as has happened here, you know?
And we see a lot of convictions getting overturned, like Bill Cosby, for example, who's now exonerated and a free man.
He wasn't exonerated. There's something else. You don't get exonerated. You get found.
Conviction was overturned.
You get found not guilty. It's the same thing.
OK, well, we're not on Cosby.
This is another death of love story.
Yeah, thanks, Lewis, to get your catchphrase in. We've got to move on now, though, to Saturday's Guardian. And what's this about media studies being a waste of time? Lewis, was that your degree?
Actually, it was. I was an American Studies major, which is basically, you know, studying American stuff.
American Studies, is that a thing?
In America, it was, at that time, it was considered to be I don't know if I can use the term, it was considered to be kind of...
let's call it a Mickey Mouse degree. Because this story's about that, saying low-value degrees. What's Sunak proposing with these low-value...
But the difference is, a Mickey Mouse degree, at least my parents paid for most of it. Yeah. Whereas what's happening is Sunak is to force universities to cap the number of students on low-value degrees, Mickey Mouse degrees.
Can you explain that to me? So he's basically saying when universities offer these degrees that are considered what they call low value, they will only have a maximum number of students they can have for each of those programs.
If those students are not proven to be doing something with those degrees, this is where it gets a bit complicated.
I don't understand why the government needs to step into, you know, a free agreement between two parties. You've got the people going to do the degree, you've got the university offering the degree, and the government's getting involved and saying, like, no, is the government paying? Is that what it is?
That's pretty much what's happening. They're guaranteeing the money, and they're giving them, basically, they're subsidizing these universities.
OK, but tell me this, because the article doesn't seem to make clear. What are low-value degrees? What subjects are we talking here?
Oh, like arts ones, anything like gender studies, anything where you're not, like, fixing a spaceship or, you know, doing some science stuff in someone's brains.
Anything with the word studies at the end?
Anything basically...
Any social.
See, this is the problem. The problem is anything at university is a low-value thing. Today, it's completely pointless to go to university.
Yeah, but that's a different question. But then what about arts? Like, you know, I did literature degree.
You can read books in your own time. Nobody's stopping you doing that, but you don't need a bit of paper saying you can read books.
Leo, I wouldn't have been able to read books if I hadn't studied a degree in how to read. They taught you how to turn the pages, how to open... You know, it was wasn't a waste of 3 years.
And then The Guardian here is trying to make it seem... I mean, I love The Guardian because they're trying to make it seem like it's a minority issue because minorities couldn't go to school and study pointless things. So they're getting...
Yeah, that's what I don't understand. So they're saying... The Guardian says it's a measure likely to hit working class and black, Asian and minority ethnic applicants. Are they suggesting that black, Asian and minority ethnic applicants can't apply for maths or science or engineering? What are they saying here?
That's exactly what they're saying. They're saying that they don't have the sort of the nous to pick, you know, a better degree or get into a better degree, which is yet more racism from The Guardian.
OK, well, it's what we've come to expect. We're going to move on now to the Metro. Emily Maitlis has been wading in on the BBC scandal. Leo, you've got this.
The former BBC star Emily Maitlis is hit out of the BBC for its coverage of the allegations against Hugh Edwards. So she said, and this is a quote from her, "Everyone knew that something had changed and that this poor man was in hospital, and that was absolutely appalling. And yet, obviously, there will be journalists here saying, but that doesn't stop us doing our work." So she's criticising the journalists for investigating these very serious allegations and obviously, you know, very public interest allegations against Hugh Edwards. She's saying, oh, but he's in hospital. He's feeling sad about it, so we should stop. Where's that for you know, Prince Andrew or Andrew Tate or anybody who gets accused of these things?
Isn't her point that, I mean, she says here, I'm just looking at the quotations from the article, isn't her point that because they found there was no criminality in this case, that actually this should have gone through an HR process?
No, I mean, that's ridiculous.
That's what she's saying, though.
The idea that anything, and we're not sure that there's no illegality. I mean,
no, but there's no evidence that there is.
There's no evidence there is, you know, at the moment. But we're not sure what happened. This is all, you know, private messages between people. So, you know, until that evidence is exposed,
what she's saying is that if he wasn't famous, it would have gone through an HR.
I think, well, I'll tell you what, if he was right-wing, if he was a news presenter on GBNews, would she be saying, would everybody on the left, Carol Vorderman, all the rest of them be saying, oh, we need to, like, touch him with kid gloves and, you know, please, you know, think of his feelings and stuff.
Do you think this
ridiculous?
Well, they didn't do that with the Philip Schofield case.
Yeah, and also with, well, yeah, but that was more, I mean, I think the evidence came out sooner. But remember when Boris and Carrie allegedly had some sort of domestic tiff?
I do remember that, yes. Someone heard them through the walls or something.
All the same people were tweeting all this sort of real, you know, speculative stuff about what that was about.
OK, well, let me ask Lewis. So do you think it's become politicised? I mean, certainly from looking at social media, it does look
I mean, it's complicated because what the BBC needs to do, it needs to show that it's impartial. Right? Because it's under tremendous pressure because it's being exposed daily, not for being the media. None of these people, anyone who works at the BBC is not. There's no journalists at the BBC. They're all state propaganda agents.
Well, you've said this before, Lewis, but the point is, in this case, I mean, they're being criticised now.
I said that in a nice way.
You did. They're being criticised now by people like John Sopel and Emily Maitlis for sort of going too hard on this story. But as Lewis says, actually, the BBC have to, in a way, because if they don't, they'll be accused of all kinds of...
And we've seen what's happened in the past when the BBC closed ranks and protected people like Jimmy Savile, you know, Dave Lee Travis, all the.
So this is a response. If they're going the other way.
Harris. So yeah, so I think they're playing safe. But actually saying that, they're not. They're all coming out and saying, "Oh, we should leave Hugh Edwards alone. Oh, look, he feels sad." And that's absolutely ridiculous.
And I
can't believe this has become a culture wars topic. I mean, surely it's like Russia invading Ukraine. Surely, whether you're left wing, right wing, we can all agree that an old man sending sleazy messages to, you know, he's married and stuff, sending sleazy messages to young people isn't ideal behaviour. Isn't good behaviour.
Like we say though, Lou, we do have to wait for all the information to come out. That's maybe what Emily Maitlis is cautioning against.
And I'd like my privacy respected in advance.
Yeah, OK. Very important point. Thank you, Lewis. And we're going to go on now to Saturday's Times. Civil servants, are they going to be as free with their opinions as you are?
Well, this is one of the third subject, which is the Labour Party, the Tories are basically doing what they should have done before.
What have they done this time?
They're basically telling civil servants they must be free to question transgender identity. They should be allowed to say, I don't believe in gender, I believe in
yes, because
sex.
there have been a couple of cases recently where civil servants have got into trouble. There was a lawsuit, wasn't there, and where civil servants are being attacked if they say that they believe that biology is, you can't change sex effectively, which is a fact. So it's very interesting. I'm just looking at this article, Leo, and so it says the Cabinet Office guidance is going to be published in autumn. It says people are entitled to say that biological sex is immutable.
Yeah.
That's a sentence that is really bizarre. You know, if you'd have gone back 15 years, who would have thought that would have to be written down in official government? You're allowed to say biological facts. That's okay, apparently.
It's like saying you're allowed to say that gravity is real or the Earth is round.
It's worse. The guidance says... This is a quotation. The department acknowledges that some employees believe that a person's biological sex is immutable. How about all employees know the fact? You know, this guidance acknowledges that some employees believe that gravity exists.
Yeah,
this is ridiculous. Why are we even having to legislate on this?
Yeah, absolutely. And the quotes from civil servants who are obviously pushing to not have this guidance come in and to have their belief or their identity affirmed. They say my existence is not a belief. How can my safety be just as important as someone's belief in, well, as you're saying, scientific facts?
Yeah.
And so making it a safety issue, like if somebody doesn't believe that you're a woman because you got stubble and whatever and you look like a bit of a bloke, how does that make you unsafe?
Because they're misusing language all of the time. The activists misuse language. What strikes me as astonishing about this is that once again the mainstream view is treated as the fringe view. Even in a document that's there to protect the mainstream view, it's all of a sudden we're the weird ones grounds for believing in biological sex.
Yeah.
Why do we have to capitulate to activists in this way? Why don't we just say...
Because, and this is something I don't think you understand.
No, I don't, Lewis. That's why I come to you to explain it. You're a fountain of wisdom.
You know what? I agree with you, but I know what they're thinking, which is their thinking is they have nothing except their identity.
Yes,
and
they do think that.
They do think that. And when
it must be fragile. If it can
it is fragile because we live in a fragile world with global warming that we're all going to die, and this is the only thing that I have.
Well, you know, it's interesting you say that because in the Maya Forstater case, when the actual when people were debating about gender identity in court and they had to answer the question, one of the activists said, without identity, all you have is a corpse. What they believe is that it's like a soul to them. If you don't have this magical thing called gender identity, you're basically dead. That's how extreme their position is on this. That's the fringe view, though.
But you call it extreme. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, like, I mean, they want us to accept their identity, but they couldn't accept themselves.
Right. Yeah. Because we're in a point of transition.
Just finally, before we go on to another one, there's also a quotation in this guideline that says, this does not, however, mean it is acceptable indiscriminately and gratuitously to refer to a trans person in terms other than they would wish. Yeah. That's going to raise problems. What if someone wants you to use pronouns that they've just made up, like she and je, or cat, self, and whatever, you know, the things that they make up.
And they have an answer for that, which is something that I didn't understand, which is they're handing out gender recognition certificates. Have you heard of this?
Yes, of course.
Yes.
Oh, so they have to have that in order to enforce that element of the policy.
Yeah, so this is the state actually giving their imprimatur, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it properly.
Yes.
On their craziness.
OK, well, look, we've just got time, I think, for one more story in this section. We're going to the Telegraph. This is about transgender cyclists, so is it a related theme?
Yeah, transgender riders have been banned from all women's cycling events. The Union Cyclist International, I've probably pronounced that wrong, has followed athletics in preventing transgender women from competing if they went through male puberty. Previously, they sort of tinkered with the acceptable levels of testosterone, but we've seen, you know, podiums with just like two transgender cyclists, you know, dwarfing this.
There's massive blokes winning the gold medal.
And I think, you know, I think it's fair enough. I mean, it's you can identify as a woman, but you can't identify as a champion cyclist. That's not fair. It's not fair.
I mean, this is incredible because the Welsh rider Emily Bridges, transgender cyclist, has described the decision of British cycling as a form of genocide. Yeah, right? And again, like I say, we should stop capitulating to these extreme, stupid misuse of language.
No, but if you look at the history of the Khmer Rouge, they started with making transgender women not allowed to compete in cycling events.
Well, I didn't know my history well enough, so there you've educated me there. Lewis, it is ridiculous. Is it furthering a genocide? It's not genocidal to stop you from cheating.
Do you know what? For these people, I think they are believing it, and I think there's a lot of sympathy because these are people basically, I think they have more support among women who are more sensitive and caring, I think, than...
No, I have support. Look, I think I'm with Leo. I think anyone should be able to identify however they want, but I don't think they should be able to enter a competition that is outside of their biological sex class. Anyway, look, that's all we've got time for in this part. But in part 3, we're going to be looking at the dangers of too much fun, a potential mood enhancer, and asking if we're any closer to the secret of eternal youth. You don't want to miss that.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers. Proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening, my name's Rachel Ayres and welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast brought to you by the Met Office. So it's been quite an unsettled, wet and miserable end to the week, and that isn't going to change much as we go through the weekend. It's all due to this area of low pressure that's going to be pushing northeastwards across the UK, and it's going to be bringing some pretty strong winds even as we go into tonight. But that rain that we've seen through much of Friday will start to clear away towards northern Scotland, but bringing some heavier bursts for eastern areas, so there could be some localised disruption there. Elsewhere, a drier night, maybe the odd shower, but with those strong winds, temperatures still remaining in the low teens. Now looking to the start of the weekend, and that rain will start to clear away from northern Scotland. A rash of showers developing across the rest of the UK. These could be heavy and thundery, and with some particularly strong winds as well. They'll be rattling from west to east throughout the day, though we might just see the odd more slow-moving shower across parts of Scotland. But in those strong winds, it's going to continue to be feeling unseasonably cool through Saturday. Looking ahead to Sunday, though, generally the better day of the weekend for many. There will be some persistent rain for a time across western parts of Scotland and the odd shower elsewhere, but a bit more in the way of sunshine and winds starting to ease as we go south to north. But looking ahead into the new week, and it will still remain unsettled, not so much as we've seen over the weekend, with temperatures at or below average.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard. We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think.
Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often there will be difficult stories, stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in the home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners, your first look at Saturday's newspapers. We're going to jump straight back in with Saturday's Guardian. Are you a Minecraft man, Lewis?
Is this me? Yeah, I am. I'm a SimCity guy. Basically.
Old school, blimey.
Old school,
I'm
yeah.
Sonic the Hedgehog. That's how old school I am.
That is really old. I'm in between that time, so I didn't even hear about it. But basically, the news is in The Guardian is that more than 850 people referred to a clinic for video game addicts, which is basically at the same place that the Tavistock Centre was.
Yeah.
So basically, they're switching.
I don't think they're related, though, Lewis. Is it possible, Leo, to be addicted to video games? I mean, aren't the nature of these games that they're designed in such a way that you want to come back for more?
Yeah, but you're not addicted. It's not like heroin. You know, it's Candy Crush. I can't believe my taxes are getting spent on people addicted to Candy Crush.
I don't think addiction is solely about substance. I think it can be about behavioural patterns, can't it?
Yeah, but come on, get some self-discipline. Yeah. Can't we just hand out just a big ladle full of self-discipline to some of these people? But it's huge money. Apparently, a lot of it is loot boxes that are in games, and they're worth $20 billion a year. So that's probably more than heroin.
OK, well, we're going to move on to the Times now. Leo, some potentially uplifting news from Australia.
So a low-cost version of ketamine, which is an anaesthetic used as an illegal party drug, is also a horse tranquilizer.
Yes, horses, isn't it?
So it can completely relieve symptoms of severe depression.
In horses?
Well, no, in people.
In people.
It's funny, they're finding out that all these drugs that people take to feel good can make you feel good.
Yeah.
So it's almost as if...
But let's just be clear, though, ketamine's illegal at the moment,
It's
right?
illegal.
So what they're saying is that they've done this...
Unless you're a vet and you're prescribing it to a horse.
To a horse.
Yeah.
The horses don't get arrested for this, right?
No.
I understand. But in this case, they've done this very rigorous study, and they found, and they've introduced placebos, but they've nevertheless found...
Placebos?
Yeah, they've found that actually, in a substantial number of cases, twice weekly injection of ketamine can cure depression.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Okay, now this story is a typical Times story pushing drugs. The Times is the #1 drug pusher. Every single time I'm on this, there's a story about the Times.
No, but they're just responding to a study.
#1
Lewis.
is
The study...
No, the studies can be lies. #1, there's no such thing as a double-blind study. Right, where the doctor and the patient doesn't know. You automatically know. You're the doctor, and you give somebody a bit of a drug, and you can see them going, whoa, whoa, whoa. You know that was the drug.
No, but apparently, Lewis, the placebos in this case had an anaesthetising quality so that they would get a bit woozy, even if they were taking the placebo.
No drug is the same. And ketamine is not like the same drug that they're giving out. This story is a complete lie.
OK, we're going to move on. I know you've got expertise in this area, Lewis, but we do have to move on because we've got a lot to get through. We're going to go on to the Daily Mail now. And what's this one about, Lewis? The elixir of youth.
Yes.
Your girlfriend will be happy about this one.
Well, no, I'll be happy to give it to me. To give it to me.
That's what I meant. I wasn't talking about her. And if she's watching, I want to emphasise I wasn't talking about her.
No.
So Harvard...
Would you not talk about... These people don't even know that I've got a girlfriend. I do not have a girlfriend. The ladies love Louis Schaefer, and the guys, too, out there. I'm
sorry to ruin that fantasy for our viewers.
Do not listen to him. Anyway, has Harvard discovered the elixir of youth? Scientists claim they're reversing aging using a simple drug cocktail.
And you're going to say this is not real.
First of all, anything that it comes from Harvard University that has to do with either drugs or food, and probably the rest of it, is the most overrated university in the history of the world.
To be fair, Lewis, even within this article, one of the Harvard professors has said that this is mostly hype. Right. So let's not... So even within the article, even from Harvard itself,
they're saying,
just ignore it.
It said, can I just make one point before you cut me off? You're going to get complaints for cutting me off. It said the team discovered 6 chemical cocktails that reverse the aging process in humans and mice skin cells by several years. The truth is that mice only live 2 years.
Yeah, exactly.
So they could have let the experiment go to 4 years and see if the mice lived to 4 years.
Leo, any quick thoughts on this? Do you want to rediscover your youth?
I would quite like to, especially after you've just pointed out I'm old.
I didn't point out you were old.
Yeah, you just said I could rediscover my youth. I thought I still was.
Implicitly, I am saying you're old.
So you've insulted Lewis's girlfriend, and now apparently I'm old as well. But it's just refreshing to see Harvard working on something useful instead of abolishing whiteness.
OK, so enough of you two old men. We're going to move on to The Independent now. Leo, what's this news about fake news?
So Disney says that these politically correct Snow White set photographs being shared by Conservatives are fake. They're these set photos. I don't know if you've seen them, but they show Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, except, only one of them's a dwarf. The other ones are all kinds of different sort of, ethnicities and disabilities and all the rest of it.
Disney's made this new live-action Snow White film. These images were basically created by a hoaxer saying this is from the set, and everyone believed it.
Everyone believed it.
The stand-in. I think those are the stand-ins.
No, everyone believed it because this is exactly what Disney do in all their films at the moment. So all the white characters from their old films have been, recast as black people. Little Mermaid is black. Tinkerbell is black.
So this is the point,
Colonel
isn't it?
Nick Fury is black. The Lord of the Rings are black. It's got Lenny Henry in it. Even on Netflix, Cleopatra is black now instead of Macedonian.
So it's interesting, though, isn't it, that, like you say, the fact that people do believe those hoaxes says something. Yeah. Because it means that they do keep doing things like this. Yeah. And maybe they should reflect on that. Why are the hoaxes so convincing?
Yeah. And it's a meme that goes around. You see, the Netflix film of the Ukraine war or something, and Zelensky's played by a black man. Everything is...
But you know what's funny? Can I point out something funny?
Quickly.
This is a remake of the 1937 film.
Yes.
Right? Which was animated. So this film is a rebuke to the animated actors who cannot get work today because they're being replaced by actual humans.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you for that, Lewis. That's all for part 3, though. But coming up in part 4, we're going to be talking about opera and extraordinary medical success and UFOs. My favourite subject. Don't go to bed.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my new show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m, where real people get to meet those in power and hold them to account. Every week, we'll be hearing your views from up and down the country in the real world. Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things. We've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
And welcome back to Headliners, your first look at Saturday's newspapers. Let's get straight back into it. This is a story from The Times about a Hungarian bookstore.
Oh, OK.
That's you, Lewis.
Is that me? Hold on a second. Yeah. Well, this is a similar story to what happened the other day. Hungarian book chain fined over Heartstopper series behind Netflix hit.
So this is a youth book about a gay relationship.
Basically. About it. This is what I've heard. You're the expert on this. I don't know about this. And all I know is I would never admit that I know anything about this. I don't know anything about it. And there's new LGBT laws in Hungary that they're fighting back against this thing.
So this is interesting because Viktor Orban, of course, has all sorts of laws against the promotion of homosexuality.
Yeah.
But this isn't the same as, say, like in Florida with Ron DeSantis, where they're removing overtly pornographic books from schools, right? Which clearly shouldn't be in school libraries. This is just a story about a gay teen couple, and Orban saying it's promoting homosexuality. That's ridiculous.
But I think the West has become such a clown show with all this, drag queens going into schools and, exposing themselves, scrotums popping out when they're doing the splits and stuff, that people in Hungary are watching that and they're saying, we don't want that here. So
there's an overreaction, is what you're saying.
So it's a reaction to what they're seeing happening in the West. And to be fair, I mean, like, if I had to choose between Hungary to raise a child and San Francisco to raise a child with, drag queen brunches.
Can't there be a happy medium? You don't get drag queens twerking at kids, but you don't pretend to kids that homosexuality doesn't exist. How about that? That would be great, wouldn't it?
It's what I find a bit annoying, and maybe annoying is not the right word, is that it was in a youth section in a private business.
Private business, yeah.
Right.
So again, that's where it's overreaching.
And it's political. There's always been this. There's always been this. You couldn't buy porn in bookstores.
Yeah, but we're not talking about porn here. That's the thing. Anyway, look, we're going to move on now to this story about the opera in the Mail. Leo, you've got this one.
So, Welsh National Opera production of Bernstein's Candide has 8 trigger warnings.
This is insane.
They include swearing, misogynist language, blasphemy, an earthquake, and an erupting volcano. It's not a real volcano. Surely going to the opera, you're going to know. You're not going to be like, oh my God, everybody run, there's lava.
You know what annoys me about this? Part of the fact it's based on Voltaire's book, which was in the mid-18th century. Okay? So people know what they're going to see. I've seen not this particular production, but I've seen Bernstein's Candide before. It's brilliant. And opera fans know what it is. And they go along and they're not going to be upset by the depiction of a volcano erupting. Lewis, I mean, don't you get a little sick of this kind of infantilising, treating audience members like they're kids?
Yeah. So you're looking at it in the regular way, but you have to look at it the other way.
What's the other way?
The other way is that it's like they were accusing them of mocking the audience.
Yeah, but it is mocking the audience.
No,
it's
it
basically
isn't.
saying that you need to be pampered and protected.
It isn't mocking the audience. It's mocking the authorities. It's not mocking the people who would go there. But it's telling the people, it's telling the people who want trigger warnings, who are probably not going to go to the opera. They're sitting at home just badgering.
I think they're just trying to get some advertising. They're getting a free write-up in the Daily Mail, so people in Swansea will be like, oh, there's an opera.
I would believe that Lewis has an interesting theory, this idea that they're mocking people who apply trigger warnings.
Yeah.
But the Welsh National Opera has form on this. They actually applied a trigger warning to their production of Dead Man Walking, and we're going 5 years ago, and because the opening scene was a horrific rape and murder, and they applied a trigger warning to advise audience members to turn up 10 minutes late if they were going to be upset. But if you miss that, you miss the whole point of the story. Right?
Yeah.
I think audience members have to be a bit more.
And there's no consistency either, because they say there's anachronistic, old-fashioned language, but they don't say, and also just to warn you, they're wearing old-fashioned clothes as well.
Yeah. You know what? I don't believe you. I think this is brilliant marketing. I think it's also with what you said about come 10 minutes late if you don't want to have your feelings. It's like when in Psycho it came out in the movie theaters, and they said we are not going to let anybody in for the first 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And so they basically people started to get there early to make sure.
Oh, well, that was smart on Hitchcock's, but I don't think the Welsh National Opera is the same, to be honest.
I won't have you badmouth.
We're going to go now onto the Daily Mail, and Lewis, what's this about men in London? They have to be on their best behaviour now. What's this?
This is very interesting because I've heard divergent opinions. Undercover police squads will fine men £100 for catcalling women in the street.
Wait, are the police going to be dressed as sort of scantily clad streetwalkers?
Yeah, they probably are.
And if you whistle at them,
because otherwise, they're not going to be able to spot anybody if they're male policemen.
Yeah.
And I think they should get so basically, they're going to be going around making sure that men don't catcall.
Well, it's a difficult one because isn't catcalling really rude? Isn't it? I mean, it's just really rude behaviour, right? So, Leo, I mean, but do you think that the state is going a bit far? It's a kind of free speech issue, isn't it?
I mean, to be honest, I don't. I think we're entitled to free speech and stuff, but the amount of harassment that women get in big cities is just ridiculous.
Catcalling, in your view, harassment? It's just I've spoken to women on both sides of this debate, and so I'm just interested to hear what you think.
Yeah, but it depends, what the nature of the catcalling is. If it's a builder whistling from, scaffolding or whatever, fine. But they get way worse than that. They get men following them, saying, why aren't you talking to me? Think you're too good for me, and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
that's how I met my wife.
I have heard stop it. I have heard that, but I've also heard the other side of it from women, and I don't know because I've never heard any catcalling. But I've also heard that a lot of it comes from when there's fear that these guys, they only catcall people who are catcall women who are fearful.
Well, I'm sure it can be intimidating. You know, it's an interesting one. Anyway, we're going to move on now. We've got time, I think, for one more story, and this is also in the Mail. Leo, UFOs.
So the Pentagon will be forced to reveal everything it knows about the UFOs in the next 300 days.
Is that precisely nothing?
We'll find out, hopefully. So a bipartisan alliance of senators plans to force the declassification of top-secret US government UFO files. I thought this had already happened.
No, so they've got all this stuff on file.
Expired and not, but this is really pertinent because this senior intelligence official, David Grush, has alleged US military and defence contractors of stonewalling on evidence of crashed UFOs, recovered beings, and UFO-related deaths.
They've got actual alien corpses in their hangar.
And a lot of high-ranking military people, Air Force people have witnessed things and sometimes even filmed things that really can't be explained.
Well, you know what? If they declassify these files, then we'll know once and for all. It does make me suspicious when the government holds on to stuff. You know, like how they keep extending the JFK files and saying, no, actually, you can't see them. No, you can't see them. That makes me think there's something dodgy going on.
There might be something, but the truth is that America is the only place that has aliens, UFOs.
Right. Well, I want to know about it, Lewis.
Of course you do, because the fact is America's the greatest country in the world. Aliens know this. You think they come and land their spaceship in Britain? No, they're going to get a parking
Lewis, if it was the greatest country in the world, they wouldn't be hiding dead aliens from us, would they?
We have too many aliens, and that's the problem. It's basically...
Share your aliens. I want to see your aliens.
We don't want more aliens to come.
Stop hiding aliens.
Where do aliens land? They come to America.
OK, so the show is nearly over. Let's take another quick look at the front covers of Saturday's newspapers. The Times is leading with inheritance tax could be axed in Tory bid for votes. Good luck with that one. The Telegraph has schools told to aid parents of trans pupils. The Express exposed eco plot to paralyse capital. Daily Mail has meltdown. The Guardian has surge in demand for UK gaming addiction clinic, and The Star summing again about the weather. That's all we've got time for. Thanks to my guests Leo Kearse and Lewis Schaefer. I'm back on tomorrow. And if you're watching the 5am repeat, stick around for breakfast. Farewell.
Good evening. My name's Rachel Ayres and welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast brought to you by the Met Office. So it's been quite an unsettled, wet and miserable end to the week, and that isn't going to change much as we go through the weekend. It's all due to this area of low pressure that's going to be pushing northeastwards across the UK, and it's going to be bringing some pretty strong winds even as we go into tonight. But that rain that we've seen through much of Friday will start to clear away towards northern Scotland, but bringing some heavier bursts for eastern areas, so there could be some localised disruption there. Elsewhere, a drier night, maybe the odd shower, but with those strong winds, temperatures still remaining in the low teens. Now looking to the start of the weekend, and that rain will start to clear away from northern Scotland. A rash of showers developing across the rest of the UK. These could be heavy and thundery, and with some particularly strong winds as well. They'll be rattling from west to east throughout the day, though we might just see the odd more slow-moving shower across parts of Scotland. But in those strong winds, it's going to continue to be feeling unseasonably cool through Saturday. Looking ahead to Sunday, though, generally the better day of the weekend for many. There will be some persistent rain for a time across western parts of Scotland and the odd shower elsewhere, but a bit more in the way of sunshine and winds starting to ease as we go south to north. But looking ahead into the new week, and it will still remain unsettled, not so much as we've seen over the weekend, with temperatures at or below average.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel. Westminster is going around an